Today's trip is to the Bahamas. We're actually heading to Florida for IguanaFest and figured let's take a side trip to the Bahamas to see one of the most endangered lizards in the world. Cyclura riley, along with the Allen Kay's iguana, another of the most endangered species with only 1,000 remaining in the population. We'll also see sharks and other sights of Bahamas. And the trip will start in Nassau, where we checked into our fine little hotel next to the ocean, and of course across the bay from where everyone else stays, Paradise Island. Our first excursion would be to the Bahamas Zoo, and along the way we saw plenty of little curly-tailed lizards. Cool to see. When we get to the zoo, what do we see? African spurred tortoises and green iguanas. They didn't have any of the rare species that we wanted to see, so we enjoyed checking out the flamingos, the peacocks, parrots, and we even saw some lizards running wild around the zoo, along with some type of red ear sliders. The anoles with the yellow dewlap sitting in some of the vegetation were kind of cool to see. As far as the reptiles actually in the zoo, there wasn't a lot to see, but it was still an enjoyable time. One of the things interesting to see is that they do a flamingo show. They actually have them all march. And just interesting to see that you can train a flamingo.
Their face.
They called some people out from the audience to help participate, such as this couple. And of course, this crazy person. Yep, Kelly acting like a flamingo. Next, we decided we'd do a city tour that showed us some of the sights to see, such as this poisonous wood. And it took us to a few interesting locations. I think this was a tour that wasn't quite so popular, as that's not going very far. But the most interesting on the tour, we're seeing a few little anoles, a cave, and a few of the sites around where you see the hurricane damage and such. But after that, we watched the sun go down and would get up the next day to go do the powerboat tour, where we'd go to Allen Kay and see the Allen Kay iguana. We also walked all around Nassau, checking out the sights and the various things the tourists do. And based on this, the weather was clear. And the next morning, there it is, Allen Kay, home for rare endangered iguana. As the powerboat arrives, the people arrive, and the iguanas are actually a little bit excited. This is what we do. We hold a grape on a stick, and a wary iguana quickly runs up and snags it before it runs off. Some were a little friendlier than others, but everyone enjoyed their time feeding the iguanas. Of course, I was in heaven and just ran around taking pictures of as many different iguanas as I could. Based on population estimates, there are only 1,000 of these lizards left in the wild. Just spectacular to see. Most of the people on the tour probably weren't aware of how rare they were. Kelly tried to take a picture of me. I'm there at the left. There, he actually got me in the photo this time. I got a picture of him with an iguana in the background. But just a fun opportunity to spend a few minutes on Allen Cay photographing the iguanas and feeding them grapes off of the stick. Once everyone piled back into the boat, we were done on Allen Cay, and we would be heading to another little island that's owned by the tour company, where we would have the opportunity to see sharks, stingrays, and of course go snorkeling. So took the last pictures, the beach is clear, and now we make it to their other island. Just a beautiful location. This was the last time I saw Kelly for a while. While everyone else gathered in the water to see the stingrays, Kelly was off wandering somewhere. But it was just a spectacular opportunity to have stingrays crawl right over your feet, reach down and touch them. There's one on my feet, splashing around.
I love it. Oh gosh. What's in your best friend? Yeah.
Okay, now I need you to stand up and please. Hey guys, I'm trying to get one straight line, shoulder to shoulder.
After we had the stingrays swim over us, then it was time to bring in the sharks. A little food enticed them in to shore, and before long, there was a large group of them. They would actually put a big fish head on the rope and let the sharks swim in and grab it, and they'd try to pull them up on the beach. Even in spite of the rain, it wasn't the best of weather, but it was still a cool experience. Not sure if it's great for the sharks, but the people enjoy it.
Woo! You're not letting go.
After watching the shark feeding frenzy, I thought to myself, I don't think I'd want to be in the water right now with all those hungry, worked up, angry sharks. So, what should we do next? Well, let's go snorkeling. Yep, that's what you do after you feed all the sharks. Maybe they're less hungry then. It wasn't the best time as it was raining, but Kelly finally showed up again. And in spite of the rain, we decided to head off snorkeling. Snorkeling is always a cool experience. We see the stingrays, and of course there were still lots of sharks. But seeing the different coral formations and fish, a lot of fun, even though it was cloudy and not the clearest because of the lack of light. Still managed to get a few pictures of some of the things that we saw on this snorkeling adventure. I guess I could mention that we are on an island out in the middle of the Caribbean. So as you snorkel, we're actually going along the coast of this island. And the water, the current, continues to carry you out to sea. So once you get to the end of the island, you have to make sure that you swim in before you get carried out to sea. And fortunately, we were able to do that. Cool to swim over a group of nurse sharks. sharks. That might be a black-tip shark. I snapped some pictures of Kelly trying to get pictures of sharks. But a lot of fun. Cool experience. The tour cost about $100 and included picking you up at your hotel in the morning, the boat ride to see the iguanas and feed the iguanas, and then the boat ride to this island to see the stingrays, to see the sharks and snorkel. And they also had a great lunch, so great day all in all, and well worth it. Would highly recommend it. Then it was back to Nassau, where the next morning we would be getting up to fly out to San Salvador. There are only a couple places to stay on the island, where most of the people go for scuba diving. Of course, we're there for iguanas. After we walked from the airport to our hotel, we rented a car and went to the iguana research station, where they're actually working to breed this endangered species so they can head start them and increase the population in the wild, which is currently estimated at only 500 individuals. It was exciting to see them in the enclosure, and it looked like some of the females were perhaps gravid, so it looked like they would be successful in their endeavor and hopefully help save this rare species. But we were anxious to try to see them in the wild. We drove to a location where, after hiking down a little cliff, we could wade and swim to a nearby island that was said to have these iguanas on it. It was quite an ordeal to get there. Here's Kelly trying to save his phone from the water. But eventually we swam over there, being the only footprints on the island, which was protected by sharks and stingrays. But there they were, wild Cyclura riley iguanas. It was just amazing to hike across the island and find these species. It was a sparsely vegetated island, low-growing shrubs, no fresh water. The only fresh water that these lizards would be able to obtain is from puddles in the rocks after the rain. It's hard to describe the feeling of walking around and finding these lizards, one of the rarest lizards on the planet. And there they are. There's Kelly taking a picture of it as they just stroll on by. Just a spectacular opportunity. One that I hope to repeat, but probably never will. We went back to the main island, and we actually drove all the way around San Salvador. We were told if we could find Captain Ron, he could take us to Green Cay, which also had Riley Eye. And surprisingly enough, we ran into a kid in the street who said, "Yeah, I know where he lives." So he jumped in our car, and off we headed to Captain Ron's house. So some of these photos you see are as we loaded the boat and actually took it to Green Cay, where the captain dropped us off the boat into the water, where we swam ashore to Green Cay to photograph some more iguanas. The only man-made item on the island was this board that was used by a basking iguana. I should mention, when that kid took us to find Captain Ron, we also found a house there where they serve food just out of their house, but we went inside and Kelly entertained their 4-year-old as they made us hamburgers or chicken or whatever it was we ate that day. But just a nice meal. It was cool to meet the people, and of course they're all friendly. But it wasn't a typical trip where you could just run to McDonald's, as there were no fast food restaurants, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or easy, convenient place to eat. As we drove around, even finding gas was a challenge. This was the Queens Highway, and this was a gas station. When I went in the hotel here for breakfast and they told me it was $25, someone said, "Go to the almond tree down the road." Well, that was the almond tree, and that little cart served breakfast. I think we had curry chicken one day and different fish or other things other days. But it was truly an adventure, a cool place to see. And of course, trips out to the islands to see the iguanas made it all worthwhile. Of course, Kelly gets interested in some of the other things he finds, such as this hermit crab. I guess it's a hermit crab. I don't really know my crabs, but I know these iguanas. And yeah, it's true. I couldn't stop taking pictures. But you know, with only 500 remaining in the world, it's nice to document and photograph as many of them as you can. Just a beautiful area, no one else around. Seeing some of the rarest lizards on the planet. We had to make another trip back to the conservation center to say goodbye to the iguanas there. And we'd soon be leaving San Salvador. This is the place where Columbus first discovered America. And now we've discovered it. And what its true treasure is, the iguanas. Something Columbus probably never knew anything about. But eventually we had to leave. And so we flew from San Salvador back to Nassau. Spent the night in Nassau. Had time for a few more little journeys. Kelly checked out the clams. I checked out a hair remedy. And Kelly got a new name, Buttercup, due to the room he chose. But after that, we flew from Nassau to Florida. And yes, IguanaFest, we made it. But that's a whole nother story.